Hello and welcome to Nospin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Is religious polarization being fanned in Karnataka ahead of the state elections due next year? Look at the pattern. There's hijab, the halal meat controversy, meat bans, boycott calls against Muslim businesses, and now the controversy over holding Ganesh Chaturthi festivities on Eidgah grounds in the state. One of India's supposedly most progressive states, the IT capital of the country, has turned into a Hindutva hotbed. Last night, the Karnataka High Court allowed Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations on an Eidgah ground in Hubli, just hours after the Supreme Court disallowed it in Bengaluru. In a midnight hearing, the High Court said that the serious dispute over ownership in the case of the Bengaluru Eidgah land does not exist in the case of Hubli, and so the Supreme Court's order is not applicable here. Now, in all of this, there is a bigger question, which is, why are our religious festivals that have largely united faiths, different faiths over the years, why are these now being used to tear people apart? Joining us on the program exclusively today is Carnatic vocalist and the recipient of the prestigious Magsaysay Award, TM Krishna. TM Krishna, thank you very much for joining us. Your music perhaps best represents the diversity and the plurality of India, which is why you're here today and you're outspoken, never afraid to speak your mind. Why do you think we're seeing this sort of increased polarization in Karnataka today?
Well, I think we're all having this discussion in extremely disturbed times, and our minds are itself disturbed. I think, of course, the obvious reason, as you pointed to, is the elections. But I think there is something far more deeper and insidious in this entire exercise, because it's one after another. The idea that you target a community, here it's clearly the Islamic community, for various reasons, whether it's hijab, whether it is food, whether it is, celebrations. It's very clearly targeted at creating an environment, a social environment of discord, of hate. And like you said, religious festivals are these very unique things. Yes, they are connected to specific religions, of course they are. But they've also allowed for a welcomeness of various things, whether it was Eid celebrations, whether it was Diwali, or whether it was Vinayaka Chaturthi. I have sung at so many Vinayaka Chaturthi celebrations in Bangalore, in Mysore, in so many. I'm singing tomorrow for a Vinayaka Chaturthi celebration in Mysore. Now, what does it mean? Yes, it's a religious festival, but it's also a coming together to be able to see the other's celebration, to be partake in a different way of praying, a different way of singing, of acknowledging if you believe in something that is divine or something that's more powerful than that. And what is that something? That's supposed to bring us together. So I think this entire thing is not just skewing people, but isn't it also making religion itself a violent mechanism? We are doing something to even the idea of praying here. And, we should be deeply concerned, irrespective of, by the way, which part of the political lines you belong to. If you're not disturbed by this, there's something seriously wrong here.
Let me ask you, though, in the case of Karnataka, this whole sort of pushback by the Waqf board against the use of the Eidgah grounds for Ganesh festivities, there are those who say, well, in a secular country, why do you have a problem if Ganesh festivities take place here? But let's not kid ourselves. Minorities and Muslims in particular today do find themselves on the receiving end of, I think, what appear to be attempts to, in a sense, obliterate their identity. Do you understand where their insecurities come from?
Absolutely. I mean, let's be very clear. It's not just about the fact that you want to use a ground, a piece of land. The issue is you want to provoke. Please also, let's remember, this is a way to provoke. It's a way to create. See, there are crazy people everywhere. There are people who are ready to be violent everywhere. You want to keep pushing a community that's already being told that your practices, your faith, your way of praying is not mainstream. It is not something that's acceptable to the larger majority Hindu thinking people. And so if you keep going to spaces, and by the way, until now, nobody really worried about these spaces. These are not there were no contestations when these things happen. Processions of Ganapati happens on the street. It happens in roads. I am singing on the street tomorrow, mind you, on the street. And nobody is complaining. Everybody comes and listens to the music and goes. So I'm saying, I think, Nidhi, it's very obvious here. Let's, like you said, let's not kid ourselves. This is a way of further telling a section of the population that you are on the margins. You have to succumb to the dictum of the diktat of a certain majority. And if you want to coexist, you coexist keeping in mind that you have to be acceptable and your actions should be acceptable to what we think is right. So, they made a fuss about them praying on the street when somewhere else. Now you're saying that the land that is used for Eid is also a land where something else. So, you're not claiming public property for the sake of equality. You are claiming this for establishing inequality and majoritarianism. Let's not kid ourselves that this is some appeal to, equalize public spaces. It's not.
What does it say about us, though, as people, when we allow ourselves to be polarized in this way? You and I were talking about religious festivities. We've had Ram Navami processions, Ganesh Chaturthi processions. Different faiths have participated in it. Yes, there have been tensions from time to time. But you saw the ugliness, right? Just a few months ago over Ram Navami processions. Now you have this clash over Ganesh Chaturthi. So every time there is a festival now, it's become a reason to tear people apart. But what does it say about us that we're letting them do this to us?
I think it says something. Maybe it says that we all had these feelings somewhere inside ourselves. Maybe it's time to recognize that. Maybe this is not being implanted from outside. Maybe it's the fact that we have truly not been together. We talk about Ganga, Jamuna, Tehzeeb and all these words. They all function maybe in certain silos, in certain environments. But have we I think this is a very important moment for us to ask ourselves. Have we truly, as various communities, come together as people of this country? Have we truly done that? Because we have failed in schools, we have failed in our colleges, we have failed in our homes, we have failed in the way we have public discourse. So I think there is a gap which has been filled by hatred. Hatred has not filled something that did not exist, tapped on it, it's exaggerated it, and it has made us, maybe we can have this conversation, but the fact is so many people are afraid and angry, and they don't even know why they are afraid and angry. We are told, sometimes Hindus, I'm told that for so many years we couldn't celebrate our festival. That's a blatant lie. It's a blatant lie. But the fact is that you've implanted that fear and that hatred, which means somewhere beyond transactional relationships with people of Islamic or Christian faith or any other denomination, we have not had a relationship as equal citizens of this country. And I think that's a failure that we need to recognize now and we need to work on now. There's no point in talking about the Constitution in terms of a book. How does it play out in the conversation that Nidhi and I have? How does it play out in how I care for people, in how I walk the street? That's what we need to change, our culture and our attitude. Otherwise, these bigots, these bluntly evil forces will choose every opportunity to create a situation, provoke. There will be stone throwing, there'll be angry posts, and there'll be hatred. And that cycle, there's no one to blame in that cycle. It's a cycle of hate. How do we blame?
You said something very interesting a couple of months ago. You said that liberals have failed Indian democracy. Explain that. Why did you say that?
Yes. I think the biggest failure in the liberal world has been the inability to recognize faith as an intrinsic element of the consciousness of the human being. We have been condescending towards faith. We've been condescending towards rituals associated with faith. I'm the first one to accept that faith and religiosity and rituals are, of course, muddled in a lot of social dynamics of discrimination. But keeping that in mind, the fact that somebody wants to believe in something that would make that tomorrow better, it doesn't have to be rational. That the moment that I pray, I feel something deep in. What is the liberal? We don't have a vocabulary to talk to that person in the liberal world. We don't know what to say. We talk sociological jargon. We talk about things that don't relate to the feeling of the person. We have not addressed the deep-seated need for a better tomorrow morning, that standing in front of a deity or doing the namaz or reading the Bible gives that person. And unless the liberal world finds a way to engage with that sensation, that very important sensation, with respect and recognizing it's important in the making of an Indian, we are going to be in trouble. We don't have a language to fight these people.
Can I ask you though that as I said right in my introduction, I think your music really represents the best of diversity in our culture, both religiously and in so many different ways. In these polarized times, how are you using your music to get a message across to people?
Well, I do whatever I can in my small way. That's all I can do, and I sing. Whether it is multi-religious text that I've tried using, we're working on a project called the Edict Project, where we're working with Ashoka's edicts and trying to give it musical, theatrical form and say, how can we think about issues of compassion? How can we talk about compassion, care, about differences in a manner that allows us to listen? One thing I know as a musician, Nidhi, is that making a great musician is not the voice or the technique. It's the ability to listen. I think to make a really compassionate society, we need to have the ability to listen. And I think that's what I try and do. I've tried now singing the preamble in many languages. I sing it in Sanskrit, I sing it in Malayalam, I've tried singing in Kannada. So, we have to bring alive these ideas in the practices that we do. So whether it is, even atheism, we have to sing about atheism. We have to think about it. We have to celebrate that as much as we celebrate Rama or Allah or Jesus. And, when these different ideas, one thing music can do is bring different ideas to the same platform and just allow it to play off. We can't have an agenda there. We just have to allow them to coexist, to be able to see each other, to be able to listen to different tunes, different sounds, different rhythms. It all sounds, very airy-fairy when I say it. But the fact is, we have to feel each other. We have to feel each other's prayer. We have to feel each other's namaz and chant. Because only then we will realize how violent these acts are. Imagine Muslim shopkeepers told they can't sell outside a temple. I'm sorry, as I say it, I'm choking up. Because I don't even understand how we can think in that manner. Here is a person selling some toys or selling the flowers that you are going to use within the temple and adorn the deity with that. And you're saying only because that person is Muslim, that flower cannot be sold to me.
Or even singers,
God are we
or
talking?
even Muslim singers. Yeah. Remember in Kerala, they were being told not to come into Kerala temples, right?
Exactly. What are we praying? Who are we praying to? We say that they should make us a better people. What are we praying for? It's very depressing. Sorry, but it is very depressing. You almost sometimes feel helpless. That's also the truth.
Do you think, though, one final question, that there is a large group of people out there, fellow citizens, who are, sort of staying quiet, who are not comfortable with this polarization and who are perhaps quiet? Are you hopeful about that? And why are they quiet if they are?
See, when I raise this question, I'm told that I have the privilege not to be quiet, and therefore I can do it. But there are many who cannot afford to do it. There's probably a lot of truth to that. Having said that, I think we are at times where we can't just say, I hate what's going. That's not my Hinduism. That's not my Christianity or Islam, or that violence is not what I think. And we can't stay quiet about it. I think the time has come that everyone needs to act. Doesn't mean everyone needs to come on a television show or make a public statement. I think we need to have robust conversations among people we know. Its time has come. In fact, I would say we should have started this 10, 15 years ago. But I think it is maybe fear, because the fear is really high. I can completely understand why people are scared to say something, because they can be beaten up. It's true. They can be beaten up. And why beaten up? You can be threatened or you can be talked down upon. I don't think any human being wants that. But if you have any kind of privilege to have this conversation in any quarter, any corner, in your gully, in your nukkad, wherever you are, at your home.
In your WhatsApp group.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Probably the worst place in town. But yes, please do. Please have this, because I'm sorry, but you cannot go on saying, something in private and then within your own little public spaces, just allow violence and hate and the vulgarity to be perpetuated. We can't allow that. Yeah, consume yourself. The truth is, you and I know this. This consumes us. I mean, we are consumed in our head. We are thinking about this in the morning and afternoon, evening, and saying, what is going on to me? And, and sometimes we think violently too. That's also true.
Well, can I ask you right at the end, if you had to sing, if you could sing a few notes for us, I mean, of celebrating our diversity, for what it's worth, and sort of some notes to bring us together. What would those be?
I'm going to take 3 lines. The first is a passage from Jana Gana Mana, which is not part of our anthem, and I'm going to switch to the Hindi translation of Jana Gana Mana, which was, of course, done by Abid Hassan. I think it's relevant that we call out these names, that Jana Gana Mana was translated to Abid Hassan, probably with the help of Mumtaz Hussain for the Indian National Army, for Subhash Chandra Bose. And I'm going to connect the two, Tagore's lines and these lines, and just sing it for you. Oho raho tobo ahvano prochorito shunito bodharobani Hindu Baudho Shikho Jaino Poroshiko Musalmano Kristani Sabke dil mein प्रीत भाषा तेरी मीठी बानी हर सुबह के रहने वाले हर मजहब के प्राणी सब भेद और फर्क मिठाए सब गोद में तेरी आके गूंजे में प्रेम की माला सूरज बनकर जग पर चमके भारत नाम सुभागा जय हो जय हो जय हो जय 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 हो Bharat Naam Subhaga.
TM Krishna, it is such a pleasure to talk to you. As always, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi.